All right, hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio. It's repeating our the host of Indiepocalypse Radio, which is a live stream about Indiepocalypse. What is Indiepocalypse? Indiepocalypse is a monthly independent game bundle and zine. You buy the games and you buy the bundles, and it all goes to developers, and it's a good time. I'm here with Nir Brun. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was like, I panicked because I had my thing on repeat. Even though the stream could not hear it, I knew in my heart that it was repeating, and I wanted to stop that, and it threw off my train of thought. But anyway, hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing really good. Super stoked to be here with all of you.
I'm glad to have you. Now, remember, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I like to make games, which is honestly kind of an exaggeration. I like to do interactive fiction. So it's
Right.
like feels a little bit lesser than actually making a game, and I usually use Twine, which feels even lesser than most interactive fiction platforms.
Whatever.
But
Game is a broad term that is ill-defined, and I use Indiepocalypse to even further ill-define what a game is.
I love that. Yeah, flexible lexicon is something that's really you should all subscribe to.
Yeah.
So yes, I make games. And
Perfect.
yeah, interactive media.
And you are in issue. Let me look this up because I haven't. You were in issue 7. Is your game just pronounced Morn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the IPA for the pronunciation of Morn. How I personally pronounce it. There's some debate as to whether that's the general English way of pronouncing Morn. But yeah, I like the sound. I like focusing on the sounds of words.
Yeah.
More so than, their meaning sometimes.
Yeah, right, exactly. I have a weird thing sometimes where sometimes I would just like know them as collections of symbols, even though I could theoretically read the word. And then I don't know. But anyway.
No,
so,
yeah.
to not get sidetracked so quickly, let me get to the first question that I have to ask every guest that I need to ask that this question applies to. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse? Because I need to figure out how to get people to hear about it.
Yeah, I heard about it from a game jam, actually. I was just browsing itch, and I saw it and I was like, this sounds interesting. And I just made a game for another jam, so I submitted everything that I could.
Yeah, I found that to be like one of the most common ways that people come across is that they're just like browsing through jams. That's also why I started adding in parentheses paying anthology, because I saw a lot of people. I was getting a lot of crossover from like game jams that have prizes in them. So I was like, what if I tell people they get money? More people might join.
Right, it is. It's totally a prize too, because then you get to say that you get paid for your art, and that's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. I can't remember if you were the ones who actually got one of the extra payouts yet.
No.
It's super wild. Like, I don't know what gets some to sell more than others. Like, some I've paid out like twice. Like, I think it was like 8 or 10. I've paid out twice so far, and some have been like not at all. And I'm like, that's why I run I run the sales and run them in bundles. So it's like, all right, everybody. So you're buying 5 games, 5 issues at once. So that tries to cover everybody.
Oh.
One day though, one day you'll wake up and there'll be like $5.37 in your PayPal.
Yes. I look forward to it. It's so exciting.
So anyway, what was I saying? I got distracted by someone giving me a message that said, not to distract you. And then I got distracted.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my God.
So let me get back on track. Your game Morn was
Sad girl poem.
A sad girl poem. And
It is. It really is.
Wait, I mean, listen, I enjoy sad poems. Like, my 2 musical genres are, as the intro suggested, loud noise across multiple genres, and also sad people with guitar music.
Oh, I love that. Such a vibe. Oh my God.
I like it if I can hear somebody like breaking, like if I can hear the pick hitting the strings is a very very affecting feel for me. I'm like, oh, I like the chunkiness of that, of the feeling of somebody hitting a guitar.
I feel that. I feel that. I have a lot of people that play guitar in my house, and one of the most wonderful sounds is when you mute the strings and then you're like playing, but you're not playing music, you're just playing rhythm. So you're
Yeah,
just like, yeah, it's so visceral. It's really nice. You just
yeah,
go ham on a guitar, man.
it's the beauty of like it being a physical like analog piece of equipment that is in a space creating sound. But
Hmm.
but I digress from that. Let me get this out of the way first because it is fresh on my brain. So we have a question here from Duncan, and Duncan asks, "Do you dip grilled cheese in tomato soup, or just eat them separate?"
Say that. Do I dip grilled cheese in
Grilled
tomato
cheese
soup?
in
Grilled
tomato soup,
cheese.
or do you
Oh,
just eat them separate?
hmm. No, I'm definitely a dipper. I'm a
Okay.
dunker. I'm like even honestly, some people might find this a little bit gross, but I am known to rip off pieces and let them like float and like simmer, and just like absorb the tomato goodness when it
Okay.
comes to tomato soup and grilled cheese combo. It's like I don't
Okay.
even know what that is, like a soaker.
Yeah, no, that is just like you're having tomato soup with very big chunks in it. You're having like
Yeah,
a tomato
yeah.
chowder that also.
Yeah. Exactly.
uh, now this is an important question because when I saw this question, I was like, "What do you mean? Who eats? I've never eaten grilled cheese with tomato soup before. Is that a thing that people do?"
My God, it totally is. You've
So
never done that.
I've never done that before. So
You're missing out.
my question
Oof.
my question is because I always have it with chowder whenever I have grilled cheese. I have clam chowder. So my kind of like piggybacking off this question is there a food that is regional to like where you grew up or where you live that you didn't realize was regional until like you left or were talking to other people?
Mm. Yeah, I should just say that I'm Filipino. So one of the Filipino foods that we'll eat is like the cheapest fucking hot dogs that you can find. Sorry for
Yeah.
cursing.
No,
But
you
like
can.
cheap.
Cursing is allowed.
Cool. Okay, thank you. The just like the really like dollar store hot dogs, and then you put that in like spaghetti noodles with like in ketchup.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
thought this is what I knew as spaghetti growing up, but that's
That's not spaghetti.
food.
No.
Yeah. And everyone's like, "What? Like you eat this? This isn't real food." But yeah, that's one of the things. Have you
No.
ever had that before?
I have not. I didn't even really know that was a thing that you could have.
It's a thing that people eat, and I'm told it's because I'm Filipino. Like a lot of Filipino families do this.
Yeah. I wonder.
But
Weird. I actually just had someone who called in last week, and she was Filipino, like, but is literally in the Philippines,
oh, hell yes.
calling from like, and was telling me about like, I'm gonna forget the name of it. Chidurapo,
Hmm.
or it's a like chocolate porridge thing.
Oh, totally, totally, totally.
But I
Yeah, the blood pork.
Yeah, no. It's like rice, like it's like sticky rice that you like mix, like you mash into a porridge or mix into a porridge, and then you just put like
Oh,
cacao in it.
oh, whoa. It sounds kind of like ube?
Yeah, and I don't know. And then like I guess that's another thing of like the difference between like Filipino and then like Filipino American dishes.
Dude, totally.
Like I wonder if like spaghetti and hot dogs is like a very Filipino American dish. Because
Yeah,
I,
yeah. Right? No, that's a great distinction because it sounds like it might be,
cause I
It's just something that like if we want to do even broader strokes, like this is a dish that immigrants are likely to do, you
Right,
know?
right, exactly. So I guess I don't know how hot dogs feel like one of like a very American food, not necessarily like sausages,
Hmm.
but like hot dogs in particular, because they're like something about like the cheap runoff meat product of it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not quite like it's not a sausage, It's not like the high quality you like have the good meat in the lining. It's a hot dog where it's all the bits that they couldn't sell otherwise and they jam it together and it tastes great, It's your
Yeah,
salty salty, processed meat, which is
It's a
taste of
perfect
my childhood.
it's a perfect dish for a country with a dissolving middle class, you know.
I love that. I love that. Oh my god.
Something I was eating. I had like I went on like a. Occasionally, I'll switch between like easy to make foods, and I'll just like, oh, I'll just make this easy to make food for a while. And hot dogs was that for a while until I realized it's like 200 calories for a hot dog and like 160 calories from fat. And I was like, I probably should eat so many hot dogs.
Especially when you eat a hot dog, you don't only eat the hot dog, you load it, with like all of your condiments, which
Yeah,
ketchup is mostly sugar.
right. Sugar and then a couple squirts of tomato, depending on how extravagant and how expensive you want to buy your ketchup.
Totally.
But so, what is? Do you have like a dish that you were interested in, like that was like I guess your pre-lockdown food that was like, oh, I love this, but now because of lockdown, like I could only get it at a restaurant, or I can't make this, or that you've like missed in like this almost a year now.
It's almost been a year, yeah. I really miss like shawarma wraps,
Yeah,
like a really dank like seared meat from the fucking oh, I forgot what you call them. Shit.
like the name of the store or the restaurant or like the food
Yeah, yeah,
car or
they have
whatever.
like the meat on the spigots.
Oh yes,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
blanking. I'm blanking.
Those like
But
they also have like those also have like are like Euro places, right?
yeah, yeah,
Also have
yeah,
those meat
exactly.
sticks. Yeah.
The meat sticks. Yeah, that's what I miss the most because I can't cook that on my own.
No, you have, who has it? You don't. I presume you don't have like a rotating heated meat stick in your house,
Exactly. If only, I'm working up to it.
right? One day we can all. One day I hope Indiepocalypse is successful that all these developers can get extremely specialized restaurant grade foods.
That's what I'll do with the Indiepocalypse money that
Yeah.
the 570 that I'll have in my PayPal.
Invested into buying some stone brick oven pizza because you like, how else am I going to get brick oven pizza in the house?
Right?
I gotta. I feel like I. Oh yeah, because I got a one of those. I got a Belgian waffle maker a while ago because
Mm.
specifically because I was like I went to hotels and I craved that cheap hotel Belgian waffle and had to get one myself, and that's kind of what I've been eating a lot of honestly lately.
I
But
love waffles because they're so versatile. Like
yeah,
you could put an egg on it and it becomes a savory dish, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Or you could put ice cream on it and it's a dessert. Like it's everything you could want is a waffle.
Yeah, you just have to like get good at not screwing up your waffles after you don't do them every 5 months, and then you're like, oh, it's easy at the hotels. Why is my waffles sticking to my waffle iron?
Oh
I'm
no.
terrible at it.
Yeah, I can tell you're speaking from experience.
Why is the first waffle always just a pile of waffles that I scraped off of the waffle iron with this with a spoon or like a spatula? But you know, cooking is a series of recipes and instructions, but sometimes there's instructions that they leave out.
Mm-hmm. And so much of it, especially with like baking or something that I feel like is time sensitive, like a waffle maker.
Yeah,
You just gotta play it by ear, you know? There's no real set time. It really depends on a bunch of different factors. Just gotta listen for that little little voice that tells you it's time to take the waffles out.
yeah. And I have not developed that voice. I was very good at like pretzels for a little while, and I could do like a
Oh,
very.
what?
I don't for some reason this is pre-lockdown. I was like
That's
I'm gonna make.
awesome. I've never heard somebody casually make pretzels.
Yeah, I was like I'm gonna make a sourdough. I got my sourdough starter. I made that, and I was like I'm gonna because I want to make pretzels, and then like I got very good at like the flip and everything, and like the twist and
Oh,
making them.
oh, incredible.
And then I screwed up my sourdough, and it all went bad, and I was like I hate everything, and I threw it all
Oh,
away. But
you
no,
have the
they're
tech.
yeah, they're like
Like you have the ability.
right, and they're very easy to make, and they're like it's more satisfying you think to have like a nice sourdough pretzel that you just like made yourself.
Mm. There's nothing like fresh made sourdough too. It's
Yeah,
got to be one of the most nourishing, nurturing things to eat on this planet.
And yeah, and a beautifully self-sustaining dish. But sourdough, all sourdough aside, another question I asked, pretty much the only, we'll call this I'm calling, this is now named the Shibuya is a Real Place Memorial Tips for Gamers, and which is, hey, what is a thing you would recommend to all the true gamers out there in the audience in the world that is not a video game or a board game or any kind of game that they should like try for once in their life?
Oh, interesting.
Not necessarily related to like game design inherently, or like, hey,
Yeah.
this would give you a better, but more like they're more art to life than video games, or more experiences in life to video games.
Hmm.
Like on our first episode, Natalie Allah has suggested getting into crystals, or just like a thing you do
Oh,
not, a thing you are unfamiliar with. Just like invest yourself in something else.
yeah. Honestly, I think something worth investing in, something that's been really good for me has been picking up an instrument and just, like noodling around on a guitar or like playing some random keys on piano. That's been one of the most nourishing things I've tried. That or slacklining. I love those two things.
What was the second one? Sorry.
Slacklining. It's where
Oh,
you
okay.
set up a line, yeah, yeah, some webbing between two trees and you walk across.
Okay, that yes, that a little bit more like dependent on where you live, I suppose.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
You have to have like a yard or nearby trees.
A park works
Oh yes,
most of the time.
right. But yeah, no, early pandemic, I was like, I bought a keyboard forever ago. I should learn to use this keyboard.
Yeah, there's a
I
lot of really good tutorials on YouTube too. But it's
Yeah,
just so much fun just making noise. And
right,
especially in the pandemic when you're not surrounded by your friends, you don't get to go out as much. I realize I don't talk as much if I'm alone. I don't make as much noise or as much laughter or as much like anything. It's so much easier to make noise around other people. So making noise is something I recommend everyone to do.
right. Fill your own space in the world for a moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I enjoyed. Like, I realized doing this I was like, oh, because I really missed. Unsurprisingly, I plan to go to a lot of shows this year, having launched, an indie zine that I was planning to go and selling at a lot of shows.
Mm,
So I kind of missed like the going out and, um, the. So I wanted this show partially to be like the late night after party conversations where you like a group of people would just hang out and meet each other for the first time and have like a chat.
aw, that's really endearing. Yeah, yeah, I miss going out to shows too. I miss big gatherings of people so
Did
much.
did you go to now? uh, Did you go to like game development like meetups or shows at all?
Never, never. There's one interactive fiction group that I go to, but I started going during quarantine, so it's all virtual for now.
Okay,
That's one thing that I do.
is that like the big one that I forget the name of, or is it
No.
okay?
It's small and it's local and it's lovely.
Because I happen to be, something I learned recently is that I happen to be very local to like one of the biggest like IF scenes in the world. I think like
Called.
I forget what it's called. They run IF Comp
Okay, totally.
because like
Wow.
I didn't realize like because I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New England. I didn't realize that
Hmm.
was like based in Boston, and there's
That's
like a
so
lot of IF
cool.
stuff there until like a few years ago. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So
Oh,
what?
that's awesome.
Are those just like casual like hangouts, or are they like, hey, we run like a demo night, or
Yeah, it's sort of casual. It's what we'll do is we'll like pick a game and then we'll take turns what like what to do next, like what to say next in the
oh, okay,
game.
kind of like
It's just really cute. Like a bunch of people get together and play interactive fiction.
oh, okay, like so like cooperative let's plays.
Totally. Yeah, and like let's plays and side commentary, which is really the fun part.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed like seeing people like like after a few months, people are like, okay, now we're gonna be locked up here forever. I like seeing like what emerges from like people's like need to reach out and
Mm.
need to connect with people. Like sometimes they just start late night, like weekly radio shows.
Aw.
But
It's true though, it's true. And so much of the art these days I feel like are growing to be more interactive and like spatial and like
yeah,
spatially like planted because people need to interact, need to engage.
right. They need to find some way to like, like everyone's trying to find like how can we do our convention, but like you walk around it in 3D space or something. Like you have
Hmm.
an avatar, or I don't know. Everyone's like trying to find their solutions for everything. So it's always interesting to see like what people are coming up with.
Yeah.
But now, do you have anything that you're like itching to say real quick? Because like I said, this goes fast, and we're actually very much approaching our half hour.
Um, I'm not so much itching to say very much more, except like thank you, man. This is really awesome. This is my
No,
first
no,
time being on anything
whoa,
like this. So
no. I was glad to have you. Like when I put this out, I was like, is anyone gonna want to be on this random show? Like in the middle of like, I just said, hey, let's all be on a show. I want to hang out and talk with people. And I didn't know what the response. Response was actually like a lot more than I was expecting.
yeah, yeah. I think you're doing a really good thing that like I know I was super stoked for and definitely wanted to, because like yeah, I never. This is something I never would have done pre-COVID. It's
Right.
just like yeah, like let's just talk. Let's just have let's
Yeah.
conversations and talk about noodles and
Right.
grilled cheeses and waffles.
Yeah. And like, I guess sometimes we occasionally mention games, but that's such like a, something I want to ask you. Do you do you also do like graphic design? Because like when you sent your page was like one of my like favorite like handmade pages that I was
Aw,
sent in.
thank you. Yeah, yeah, I do a little bit of graphic design too.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
I dabble, but yeah,
Yeah, no.
thanks.
I also dabble because sometimes people, you see, you are in the know on the form. It says like, if you don't, I'll just make it for you. So I've like,
Hmm.
then I'll get something like you and I'm like, wow, how do people just like come up with this? It's good stuff. Good, like
Aw.
evocative stuff. And I wish one day that everyone could like go to events and see all these, because I print them out every week.
Oh wow. I didn't
And
realize that you
yeah,
printed them.
yeah, I have like they're in a drawer next to me for like the one day when eventually lockdowns stop and I can go out into the world and
Emerge from your cocoon.
right, and I've like set it up. I don't look like it's because I could just go to artist alleys and like I don't have to go like to video game conventions
Hmm.
because I can just like set them up like they were like in prints and everything. I just want
Yeah,
people to get their hands on them.
totally. Yeah, I feel like art, like mini zine communities, like they love the sort of zines or bundles that you're producing. And like I feel like the arts like quote unquote arts community and the game design community, there needs to be so much more overlap than I feel like there is.
Yes, that is like my philosophy with like the covers because all the cover artists are not game designers.
Mm,
So that's like a very intentional design on my part. And it's also why I try to put like comics and stuff in there because I want to like get people who don't make games to get involved.
wow, I love that. Yeah.
Well, thanks. But it does feel very insular and very
Mm,
like they people only play video games and sometimes and also only the games that are trendy at the moment.
totally. It's a bit of an in-group ideation thing, it feels like.
Right.
Like, are you in the know? Do you
Yeah.
It's fun. I like to see different spheres of people coming together and just like delighting in what each other have to bring to the table.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of these days, starting soon. I mean, I guess technically starting with this episode, but like starting, I'm trying to get like animation on this show.
Oh, dope.
Like one of the past contributors, she's like an animator, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I've got animations, and I know
Aw.
animators in France. So yeah, let me hook this up." And I need to like but that's like more work of like tracking down people. If you know
Yeah,
animators, I'd love to have their animations on the
I
stream.
do actually. Oh, that's wonderful. I put you guys in touch.
Yeah,
That
especially
feels really
like
good too.
yeah, especially like I mean, I guess you should know being part of Indiepocalypse, but I don't care about like marketability or accessibility or
Nice.
I like
I love that. You're
I
just doing what you're doing
right.
for the joy of it, you know?
I love weird shit, and I want to support people who do weird shit,
Fuck
even
yes!
even
I
if nobody
love
cares.
that.
I, I want to just and not just like casually weird shit. Like that's a whole other discussion where I think people go, it's this shit's so weird, when really it's like weird in like the most basic of levels, where it's like Mario is doing
Mm,
something Mario usually does not do.
mm,
Mario is saying naughty words. It's so weird, but
yeah. You want
but
like the devout weird things, like the
correct.
certified strange.
Like true outsiders. Things that like in other art forms are considered outsider art.
The stuff that you would never get paid to make, but you make anyway because it's just this wonderful, crazy thing to put into the world.
Exactly. Or like you were paid by an eccentric patron
Yeah, totally.
who's like, yes, I appreciate this art.
I love that. Yes, more, more, more.
Ah, a true artiste. Someone who wants to inflate themselves.
Yeah, I'm all about art and self-indulgence, honestly. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think you should hold back when you're making something that you love for the simple fact that you love making it. Like, go
Right.
all out. Add an extra arm. It's wonderful.
There are so many, like, I'm sure you could find a million quotes from famous artists about you should be self-indulgent, and if you don't like your own art, how
Oh,
could anybody else?
yeah,
I think
it's true.
the most recent, the one I last saw was from David Bowie, but I don't remember what it said. I think the paraphrase was basically, if you don't enjoy making your own self-indulgent art, why would anyone else enjoy experiencing your non-self-indulgent art? But that is our thank you so much.
Thank you. This
Stick
has been
around.
lovely.
No
I
problem.
will, of course. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the others.
If there's something extra pressing, feel free to jump in if you like this needs to be spoken on. But in the meantime, I'm going to go to break and we'll be muted during that. So thank you all. We'll be back in about 3 minutes or so. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm here with my second guest Nate Kiernan from, is it just pronounced Critical, but with a Q in it?
Yeah, I made it when I was an edgy teen and thought it'd be cool to just make letters do what they're not supposed to.
But you know what? For the edgy teeniness of it all, it's also good for branding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's weird is apparently there's every time I try and type it in, it wants to correct it to fixing the Q to a K, because I guess that's in some Latin American countries is an established thing that exists. So I'm competing with someone doing like soccer gifs, apparently, which I mean, I don't know if there's any overlap there, but I know nothing about sports, so it's probably as good of a competitor as I could hope for.
Soccer is the one with the black and white ball that they kick back and forth across the pitch, as it were.
So I'm told. I could not. Every person in my family except for me has played soccer. I still could not tell you really anything beyond put the ball in the hole. It's not a hole. What is it called?
I was gonna warn
put
you.
the ball. See,
well,
this is how bad I am.
So. I mean, to be fair though, like, is not a net just kind of like a very large hole when you think about it?
I mean, it's a hole full of holes, so I don't know. I mean, do we have to get into like the ontological nature of holes at that point?
That's what we're gonna. That's great. So we have a point for a question for you, Nate. How do you define a hole?
How do I define a hole? uh, see, now I'm overthinking and my brain is just collapsing in on itself. Right now, my brain is a hole. It's just
Okay.
consuming.
All right,
It's just a empty void that stuff falls into.
so instead of that, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, so I'm Nate Kiernan. I mostly write about video games at critical.com, which we already went through the weird spelling of. And I run a podcast called Critical Care where I talked to cool people in the games community broadly. And I also post about bread a lot. So that's I guess the most that I can introduce myself as.
Yes, and now the important question. I think this applies to you, or did I email you? How did you hear what Indiepocalypse, or did I email you about it?
Good. I believe how it happened is I discovered it just scrolling through itch, and then you happened to email me about
Okay.
it like that same week. Basically, it was some weird like Facebook is listening to me talk about stuff,
Yes.
but for some obscure indie zine.
Well, you guys
Um,
didn't. No one. I didn't tell everyone that I worked for Facebook this whole time, and I've been collecting your data.
mhm.
How do you think I?
Using it to sell these zines with Facebook money.
How do you think I fund Indiepocalypse? It's all that
Mhm.
big tech money.
Yeah.
No, I don't have marketable tech skills. Or else I could make video games. Well, so tell me a little bit about critical, like what the philosophy of critical, or what you would want to say about critical.
Okay. So critical sort of spun out of me writing about games just on forums. Because so growing up, I read a lot of like games magazines. Had Game Informer coming for forever, just a giant stack in my bedroom. Watched lots of like Gersman on GameSpot, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And being kind of an isolated nerd who was sort of creatively driven, I felt compelled to write about this stuff, which led me to posting on forums, which then I wanted to own my stuff more. So I started blogging. And then I felt like my branding was poor. So I put together Critical sometime in like 2013, 14 or so as a way to kind of feel to kind of carve myself out on the internet to make myself look more legitimate than
Yeah.
just a blogger, because I felt if I was just posting reviews, then I was just some internet scrub. But if I had a site with a logo, then I was a real game reviewer.
Right.
And
You could trick your way into events for free.
yeah, but my crippling social anxiety has kind of forbidden me to actually go to any of those.
Yeah.
But that's been great this year because turns out nobody else is going to them either. So
Right.
I
Love it.
am a professional games critic in that I am also not going to events and also am reporting from stuff in my home. But anyway, long story short is that at this point, I mostly use Critical as a platform to talk about stuff I don't see being written about in sort of enthusiast press,
Right.
sort of focusing on smaller game stuff like Indiepocalypse, stuff like just weird things on itch. I vent a lot about my frustrations with games, with the games culture and especially games media.
Yeah.
Doing my best like citations needed impression, but it's really just about games journalists. Uh,
Oh, like
and
say for instance, someone was saying, "Wow, these games are really slept on this year. I can't believe critics aren't talking about these games." And their source are most searched games on Google.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
That
which
kind of thing, perhaps.
yeah, it's gosh, there's so much to dive into there. Um, that's a hole to fall into. But yeah,
So you
and
would define that as a whole, correct?
yeah, I would define games criticism as a whole.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, so a lot of what I've written about this year has sort of been taking a wild pull away from more traditional games review type essay stuff and talking more about games as sort of cultural artifacts, about like political implications, sort of talking more personally about just how I respond to games, which has been a lot of like, I'm sad and this game is also sad and I feel connected to it. Uh, and yeah, and now it's sort of with the advent of the podcast, it's sort of started to get more attention, and I've actually felt more connected to people. So it has been a nice way to ride out these months of isolation, while also helping me have my hot takes, which I need to survive.
Yes, and I think that's like in fact like super crucial and probably the most important kind of thing, because it's like the most I get follow up from is from like you and from like I think of them as the Hell crew, Deep Hell Zone and Indie Hell. No, it's Indie Hell Zone and Deep Hell. I got them flipped around, and this kind of like local. I say in quotation marks, game scenes.
Yeah.
I wish
I have really started to I mean, at this point I basically don't look at like any sort of games website that has like cultural significance, I guess, not to like discredit the other people writing about games, but like the folks that I've been reading who I feel like are actually doing interesting stuff in the forums are people like Deep Hell or No Escape or like you said, Indie Hell Zone, just like really sort of bespoke sites that are often sort of similarly angsty, similarly fed up with kind of the state of games criticism, maybe thinking more about it as like a industry than most people within it, for better or worse. So yeah, those are all great folks. And
I was trying to
I
find.
think
While you were talking, I was trying to find a tweet that I think that may have been deleted, or maybe I only liked it and didn't retweet it. I don't remember, but this is one of those things where I recognize a name and as a collection of symbols but my brain has never fully processed what that name was. And one of the developers, I mean, both of the the main developers of like Anodyne and Anodyne 2.
Oh,
and
yes.
Even the Ocean, whose
Yeah, I
names
think
I
I know what
forget.
you're. Yeah, Melos Hantani.
Yes,
I
there
think.
it is.
Yeah, and yeah, I think they tweeted basically nobody has to talk about corp games.
Right, and then there was like a good follow up to that I was something to the effect of like, just start local and be local, and think like locally, if you will, if that makes sense. In terms of like, well, just support the people who are like doing the small scale work. Don't necessarily stress out about. Oh, I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that one, but
Yes, it did get deleted. I looked up the thread. Whatever one was in the middle.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely feel that sentiment. I have broadly, similarly to not reading like big game sites, I've also not really been playing a lot of big games. I've been like, anytime I read about like the new game coming out, I just kind of not to sound like really high and mighty, but
No, I want to hear it.
I mean it just sounds like the most derivative like garbage. Like I really struggle to see what is interesting about these games to people and what
Right.
is valuable in spending so much time, so much like mental and like cultural energy fixating on them, because I just find them so like vacuous.
A constant cry that I've been giving out is that, hey, I think games need to be a little bit more pretentious, honestly. They need a little bit more like noses being turned up, because I think it's like shows that people give a shit, and it's not just like this vapid consumer industry.
Yeah, Like my favorite games that I've played in recent memory have been ones that are very forwardly like comfortable with alienating the player, like doing things that are going to turn a lot of people off, that are going to be unusual and hard to parse. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah.
but it's always much more provocative than here is a shiny game with all the hard edges sanded off. You know exactly what this is going to be before you even start it. It's like it's it's the difference between like turning on a syndicated show where everything's going to reset at the end and you have it's basically 30 minutes where you can have like comfort food and not really think about it,
Yeah.
but it it is not going to surprise you. It's not going to inspire like some new understanding of yourself or the world or even the thing you're watching. It's just kind of a piece of media that exists, which there are times when that's fine, but when
Yeah.
that's like 90% of what the medium is, it
Yes.
starts to just kind of make me wonder what is the point of this? Is like I the watching everything come out around Cyberpunk, which has truly been astonishing just how much keeps coming out. Like every time I think like, all right, this is the last like just
Yeah.
outrageously awful thing that's going to be associated with this game,
Right.
something new comes out and it's just like, dear God, it's just it's almost impressive how much they've been able to sort of bury in, how many controversies they are
Well, they've
sort
been
of
working on it for a
cultivating.
very long time. They've had a lot of time to make those controversies.
Yeah, yeah, all those crunches were to get in some more right wing dog whistles. Um, but every time, like watching that happen, I've really had to like sit and be just like, are like video games as they broadly exist? I don't know that they are a net good of any sort to society. Like I truly feel like half a lot of like the labor abuse, the sort of culture surrounding games, the what they are doing in terms of like their production, their impact on the planet, like it is just really hard for me to feel like they are something that should exist when so much around them is just so toxic and abusive and just like creatively like meaningless. And
Right.
it's
I
really the
think.
only thing that like tips that in the other direction is going on to itch and finding some small game by somebody that made it for free and is probably like working at a Starbucks but is making this really interesting creative like
Right.
vision, which I know I'm sounding like absolute like uh hipster
Well,
garbage, but
listen.
yeah.
Ga- Games don't have hipster garbage. That's. I think that's actually a problem with games is they lack hipster garbage, like mass
Hmm.
market hipster garbage. Like what is video game pitchfork? You know, is there a video game pitchfork? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I mean it was going to be Kill Screen, but then Kill Screen sort of for a variety of reasons imploded,
Yeah.
and also sort of like every site that tries to be a less sort of consumer driven like marketing arm of the industry, it still focused on whatever the biggest games of the year
Right.
were. Uh,
Still has
often,
posts about whatever your, the next Fall Guy season pass or something.
yeah, I mean, it's still like it. They might review like a obscure indie game, but they're also going to spend a lot of time just writing about Halo or whatever comes out. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but it is disheartening when like the best like case for this that has been made for as far as I've seen, like this. I mean, this was from ex Pitchfork people. Like it had some amount of like money behind it, and a lot of the writing on there was very strong, even if it was about like sort of like like very big sort of shitty games.
Yeah.
a lot of it was still very strong and a lot more provocative than what you would find elsewhere. And even then, the site went belly up
Right.
and was riddled with like labor issues and all sorts of garbage.
I think part of
So,
that is like there is no audience for it yet, really.
hmm
There's no pretentious like video game audience that's looking for like the deeper and deeper, like, oh, I found this game when there's still a demo on a forum.
yeah, I mean, it's just like broadly the audience of people that care about writing about games are the same people that are like lurking on Reddit and like harassing people on Twitter. It's like people that are
Right.
very invested in this, or it's the people actually doing the writing. And that's not like your audience is like actively trying to harm you in a
Yeah.
lot of cases. So how are you going to how who the only people that I seem to be able to find who care about like the sort of critical stuff that I like to read and that I feel is like actually engaging with the medium beyond just how are the guns
Yeah.
um
But
is
how are the
all
guns?
is all are all people that are doing that writing. Like
Yeah.
it's a very sort of small industry of people who care about this are doing it and nobody else really gives a shit because games as they exist culturally are broadly just are just ways to waste time uh, and or cultivate internet mobs.
Right. Build good brands and sell money.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I would be remiss, Nate, if I did not ask you about your opinion of grilled cheese and tomato soup and what you do with the two of them,
Okay. So
as per
I
Duncan's request.
yeah. So I don't know if you saw my chat, but I am
Listen.
absolutely
I don't read the chat around here. I don't have
okay.
time for
That's
like
that's fine.
shouting out the
It
chat.
was basically like I don't know what you've been doing with your life if you haven't had grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Okay,
Like,
okay. Whoa,
yeah,
whoa. Wait a minute.
here's my hot take: is, is that you need to wake up and live and get some grilled cheese and tomato soup as soon as possible.
I
Uh,
would my counterpoint would be, what are you doing with your life if you have the option to have a soup and you're not eating clam chowder instead? Like, that
I
would be
mean,
my take.
you're living a good life. You're doing
You're
better than the rest of us.
you're
If you're skipping out on that weird clam soup.
No, that clam soup is the lifeblood of soups. I will not have if I have another option, I will not have another soup. It is like
Mm.
madness. Like when I had this experience where my follow up question, because when I went to Toronto and I was like, oh, my hotel is connected to like a Whole Foods or like a mall. There's a Whole Foods, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll grab some chowder. It's like 10 soup stations, none, not even a bisque, not even like a crab soup, which I don't like very much because there's like corn and stuff in it usually. But
Yeah, sounds like I need to move.
yeah,
Uh,
it's so
But
weird.
yeah, I'm all for dunking. I'm all for having like croutons in the soup is a nice like middle ground between like the weird like floaty thing
Yeah,
that we were talking about. They have a bit more substance. They're a bit more substantial. They aren't going to dissolve in your soup. But honestly, if I have the choice, I'm just getting a bread bowl because it's it's cutting out the middleman. It's
yeah,
it's just like here is too much bread for any one person, but it's all been claimed because it has all the soup on it. You can't put it away,
yeah.
so you're kind of obligated to eat it.
You don't put your
It's
bread bowls in a Ziploc bag and save for later?
yeah, it's like you can't reuse a bread bowl. Like once you have popped the seal on the bread bowl and poured some tomato soup in, that's you're committing to that entire bowl. Like your plate you should not have a plate. It should just you should come in and leave with nothing. Uh,
Now what would you say to extend that philosophy to all foods? No plates, all edible plates.
so I was thinking about this today and how functionally you can divide bread you have your like dessert bread and you have your utility bread, and I'm really into the utility bread, which is bread that takes the place of some other object. It removes the dishes from the equation, so you have like your sheets that you use instead of like pizza dough would be like in place of a plate,
Yeah.
or a bread bowl is in place of a bowl. Sometimes you get like thin, like biscuity bread wafers that you can use to scoop stuff up, and that's what I'm here for. I'm
All
all
right.
for collapsing the divide between utilities and edible foods. I
Now
think
this is a very important question for you, Nate. What do I drink out of?
uh just straight out of the faucet. Like don't
Okay.
even yeah.
I
Just
mean
get your mouth under there.
Listen, if we're being honest, this is between you and me. No chat, no one else here. I do just drink it straight out of the faucet.
Yeah, I mean,
It's so much
you're
easier. I'm not dirtying a glass for water.
I mean, the only person here is my cat.
Yeah.
My cat drinks out of a bowl on the ground. They don't give a shit if I'm drinking out of the faucet. If I
I'm sure.
just get that, if I just get that milk carton straight out the fridge, like
Yeah.
this is 2020. You gotta let yourself have some slack. You gotta really embrace this anarchic side of eating.
Now, do you have a
And
cat that will drink out of the faucet, given a running
she's
faucet?
I have a friend who has a cat that does that. I've not been able to. My cat likes to come in and like scare me when I'm taking a shower,
Yeah.
but if she sees that I know that she's there, she'll run away. She's scared of running water, but she will brave
Okay.
it if he can jump on me.
I've had a lot of
So.
cats over the years, and they go through like different water drinking habits.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like, no, I only want faucet water only. Sometimes it's no, I only want the leftover shower water. Nothing else will suffice.
Yeah, no, my cat's very particular. She will refuse to eat or drink until I have it exactly as she wants. Like she will starve herself if it's not to her liking. She's having hunger strikes here. If I don't give her favorite food, it's absolute nonsense.
From my experience, I play that game of chicken and I always win. I'm like, oh, if you don't eat that canned food, I'm not going to give you another one, and that's it. And then the cat's like, well, shit, I guess if I'm not going to get any other food.
No,
Anyway,
see,
as
yeah.
we're closing our time, important question, Nate. Gamers, tell them about them. You're clearly high opinion of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what,
they're the best. Love my gamers.
what would you recommend for the gamers? That's not a video game.
That's not a video game. God, anything, please. Just read a book, watch a movie, listen to music, do anything that is not game related. Video game soundtracks don't count. I'm sorry. Marvel movies don't count. You're gonna have to go a little farther, but I have complete faith that if they try,
what about
they can.
the Roger Corman Fantastic Four? Does that count?
Maybe we'll work up to that. Like,
okay.
If you get like a few non-nerd related media under your belt, then maybe we can like have some discussions about these fine lines. But I'm really gonna need people to kind of take a step back from nerd culture to put their Funko Pops to the side for a bit and just kind of realize like the vast history of humanity that shockingly exists and is more accessible than ever.
Even my Roger Corman Funko Pop?
I mean, they can stay. They can learn some things.
Corman can stay on the shelf.
Yeah, that's the one. Get the rest
I may
out.
or may not use this break searching to see if there's a Roger Corman Funko Pop. I was going to say Vincent Price, but there's almost assuredly a Vincent Price Funko Pop.
Well, see, as you're speaking these words into existence, Amazon is harvesting this audio and 3D printing a new Funko Pop as we speak. So in the time it takes to go to break, there will be a new Funko Pop. There might be one of me if I'm not careful. So
that's the mistake of putting your image on the internet.
Yeah, so find me with a giant bobblehead holding a chicken.
Also a giant bobblehead,
mm-hmm.
but slightly smaller. Well, Nate, it was good talking to you. We're going to go to break.
Always.
We're going to go to break now. Stick around. And we will be back in about 5 minutes. Goodbye. Hello, and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. This is the third segment. I'm here with Gannon Reedy. Hey, Gannon.
Hey.
How's it going today?
It's all right. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm just hanging out, you know?
Yeah.
Just chilling in the rhythm of it.
Absolutely.
So, whoops, that's not what I wanted. So, hey, Gannon, tell me a little bit about yourself. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm all right.
Yeah. Who are you? Introduce yourself a little, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, my name's Gannon. I do the GMing, game mastering on the Neoscum podcast, and I'm an artiste.
Yes, that's how I found you. My cover artists are half people who I like, and I'm like, yes, I'll pay them money to make art. And the other half is just stuff I call from Twitter. You are from the former half. Hello.
Hello.
We also just played in animation of yours.
That's right.
That was
this summer. My first.
It was like, oh yeah, I think when I was like getting set up to like, I don't remember what context I saw it. I'm like, oh shit, dude, animations. Because you have like a very, I don't know how to say it. You've got a very zine vibe in your art.
Thank you. I'm a fan of the form.
Yeah, and it's like there's so many. It's weird to describe because I don't want to call it like contrasted with like professionalism art, you know, but there's a
rough quality.
Yeah, there's like an inherent like dirtiness to it.
I'm a big fan of like Raymond Pettibon, the dude who did the Black Flag artwork in the 80s.
Yeah.
And like the 70s, some the punk weirdos, weird comic guys.
Right.
I'm a big fan of the roughness, so it's certainly something I embrace in my not. Yeah, I didn't go to like art school or anything.
No.
So, yeah, it's all very self-taught.
I didn't also. I went to school, but for nothing that I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I did go to art school. I went to school for theater, but I wasn't.
Oh yes.
No one. I never got to draw a model or anything like that.
Right. No, you didn't do like the art program. You may have had like. Did you have any like art like electives that were like traditional? Like I guess.
I did not. Just the theater circuit.
I always find it weird because I never know how to like distinguish the two from just like art, the broad general concept, and art, the people who put their hands and make things on a physical canvas.
Yeah, that's physical, performing, visual. You got to throw some dang modifiers on there to get a little specific.
So as like a theater major, have you done anything with like theater wise? Like what do you do with like theater in like the pandemic with everything shut down?
Oh, well, I mean, like in the pandemic, like, I don't know, that's really interesting. Like let's see, like I graduated from college, 2012 or something like that, I just moved out to California, but before I moved out here, I had a weirdo theater company in Chicago called the Runaways Lab Theater, still going. Some of the best stuff you can see in Chicago. We rock.
Are they doing like live stream COVID stuff?
I don't know what they're doing. I don't think they're doing anything right now. I stepped down from like more producery functiony things with the moving on out. I don't know. It's like the theater has a lot of problems, and it's like for me the big question would be if you're like doing theater with a capital TRE theater, like what are you like so much of it is, I mean, not to just walk in here and be a real negative Nancy about it, but like some of it is just such bullshit. Like a lot of it is based off of high paying donors of an upper middle class like educated background, which can lead to like a lot of very very shitty patting on your yourself on the back, congratulatory stuff, while, theater, their audience is continuing to die. So then you have like all these young people who are like, I don't really want to sit down and watch a 4-hour production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, even though it is a very good play. Like,
Right.
I don't want to do that. Like, why should I want to do that? Oh, you should want to do that because it's the intellectual pursuit. That's
Right.
not a very
It's
good
theater.
It's not a good pitch.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, when I was doing theater in Chicago, I mean, this is maybe a slight divergence, but when I was trying to do theater in Chicago, it was like, why, what can I do to actually make someone want to leave the house and go sit down at a show in a place,
Right.
Probably somewhat DIY with the amount of money that we have.
Right.
Like, how can I make this worth their while? So that was always the thing that I was trying to grapple with. So in a time of pandemic, I think that is really something you have to grapple with. Otherwise, you're just doing staged readings of like classics for, again, upper middle class people who are excited to raise their hand during the talk back at the end.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. For me, the theater degree, if, you're thinking about it, functionally goes into, doing the art thing with Neo Scum. I do a lot of writing and a lot of performance on that as we just kind of wait and see what the world turns into in 2021.
Okay, yeah, because I had someone on last week she does like also does theater and dance, and she was like, I guess we do Facebook, Instagram live stuff, I guess, like kind of like trying to figure it out, but obviously without the physical space, she said it loses like an energy.
Yeah, you lose a tremendous amount of energy with that. So, I mean, whatever the pitch would be would have to be so exciting that everyone would just be like, yeah, I gotta see that. Like, I don't know. I guess a good example, I don't know, I'm totally pulling this out of my ass right now, but
okay, no.
Did you hear about like the Gucci Mane, the versus battle with Gucci Mane and Jeezy?
I think I heard people talking about it on Twitter, and I was like vaguely aware of what it was. Yes.
I think that's like been the only thing that I like tuned into live this year that was like, this rocks. Like,
okay.
I'm absolutely, because the intense beef that Gucci Mane and Jeezy have, even if there's like an element of like, I don't know, sort of like wrestling, like
right. You're still like you're performing. We agreed to do this together.
Right. Gucci Mane did literally kill one of Jeezy's friends who he sent to like rob him or kill him or something like that. So someone like just like the insane stakes of that. Yes. And like also like doing all your biggest hits that rock, that are fun to listen to, like in this, like in Magic City, sitting on 2 thrones, like I guess to be pretentious about it, like there is a very theatrical element of just having a sitting camera watching these two guys, not a bunch of big fancy cuts. It's just the actual live animosity between them, the performance aspect of it, and then the actual like thrill of like how awesome all the songs are. I guess like if you want to do theater, capital TRE theater, I hope it's as good as, I hope it tries to be as good as that, man, because that was that's a live event I tune in for.
You got to do something, right? Because they're like, yes, I guess that comes back to the idea of like when you're young and you're scrappy and like, well, yes, you could put on like I could put on my my version of Virginia Woolf, or I could put on Shakespeare, but also it's like that stuff will be around still and like before and after you. So there's like I think a desire to like, well, if we're gonna make something to get people's attention, especially if you're starting out, you need to make something that will bring people there. That's not, the old standards.
Right. Like what is the thrilling element to this thing that I'm doing that translates to whatever audience I'm trying to go for.
Oh, cool.
Because that's the other thing. Like theater can also just run super indulgent. Like I'm just doing this for the experimental nature, which is just a real nice, easy way to keep yourself from actually thinking about what kind of work you're doing at all.
Yeah. It's also like a weird because it's very like you also have to rent a space. Like you need a place to put it on in. So it's
truly. I mean, that is the really funky thing. Like in Chicago, like we were doing shows for a little bit in a space where the artistic director of the Runaways at the time, she had the space. It was like a former tattoo parlor, but she also lived there.
Yeah.
and it was not zoned for it. So it's a weird thing. It's just like, I'm just a guy who wants to like do a live performance of something, and all of a sudden you have to learn about zoning and real estate and stuff like that.
I remember
very silly.
I was looking up art, like sort of like theaters or art spaces around where I was, and I was like, I found something in Providence. I'm like, this looks like somebody's apartment. This does not look like a theater. Like, is this just someone's? I mean, there is like a really good, like I think it's almost like a whole block in Providence called AS220 that's been around since like the 80s. There's like very much like a good arts scene there.
Righteous.
But that's like the nice thing is like if you want like money, I guess, and like no culture. I'm sure there is. There's plenty of culture in Boston, I'm sure. But I'm also close enough to Providence that if I want the real shit, I can just go to Providence.
Oh, far out. Yeah, that's really cool.
But that's like, it's a weird thing where I guess with something like theater is very tied to a space, and in a world where there are no spaces anymore, what do you do? But
yeah.
Well, let's get into something real quickly here at the midpoint. A question that's burning on Duncan's mind. Gannon, what do you do with grilled cheese and tomato soup?
Duncan, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I'm hard pressed to remember when I know I have done this, but yes, I've put a grilled cheese sandwich in tomato soup.
Okay.
Tastes good. You dip it, tastes nice.
Yeah, okay. I've never thought of that as like a. So is there anything that was like, I guess having recently, now are you from sort of like the greater Chicago area or like Illinois?
No, I am from California originally.
Okay.
I went to Chicago for college, and I stayed there for 10 years.
So like leaving California, was there something that was a staple that you didn't realize was a staple until you had left for college?
Actually, it's just something I've realized recently coming back to California, but for some reason, tri-tip, the cut of meat tri-tip.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just not in Illinois, but it feels like it's all over the place in California. You can buy a cut of tri-tip and Safeway, Whole Foods, blah, 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 say sandwich, tri-tip, blah, blah. It's on like all the menus and everything like that.
Right.
But it's like I just would not see that word out. I don't see that word outside of the area of California, I guess I grew up in. Maybe I'm just cuckoo.
Yeah, that's cool. Now I like to Indiepocalypse. We keep things secret about where we're from. We don't need to share our entire lives with the internet, as people are so want to do nowadays.
Sure.
It's always like a weird vibe that people do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gannon, let's talk. I guess weirdly relevant to like what games are talking about right now. Neoscum being a Shadowrun based actual play. I was like, what's the name for those stupid things? It's an actual play.
What is the name? It's such a long, silly title. An actual play, real play, tabletop role playing podcast.
They're so like, it's such a broad genre because there are actual plays where it's like unedited 3.5 hours worth of like crunch. And like you're hearing everything that goes on at the table.
Dude, yeah.
Neoscum is of like a much more like tightly edited, like produced. You have music, and that's like like editing and sound cues and like flashbacks and that sort of thing. So it's like, are those almost like a genre, like a different like subgenre in and of itself? I wonder.
That's a good question. I guess, I'm not super versed on the history of actual play, role play, tabletop podcast. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a different listening experience.
Because they feel like they're like a weird halfway step between like actual plays and like audio dramas to some extent.
Right. Yeah, there is an interesting. Yeah, I think it is a really interesting form, like a sort of tightening up what happens at the table a little bit and making it more into an audio drama. Except it's kind of, I don't know. I imagine for the people listening, there's a kind of thrill knowing that it's improvised and there is, there's not a set. This is how this is going to end.
Right.
Everyone's figuring it out in the moment.
And you have like that, that extra player at the table that you call the dice, who just is a pure agent of chaos.
Totally. I gotta say, I really like the dice. I do think that the form is, again, to speak pretentiously, the form of like an edited narrative, improvised thing with a dice determining an X factor. I think it's a really interesting form and has interesting potential.
It's like it's a version of improv with like a pure agent of chaos with like no goal and directive.
Right, totally. So things will just happen and you got to go with it, It's like like doing improv, you get used to the different types of performers and personalities, and some people I'm going to be the guy who wins this. I'm going to maintain higher status through the whole thing. Or like, maybe another person who's like, I'm cool with losing. I'll always take the bullet. I'll always like, but yeah, with the dice, it's crazy because like nobody knows what's going to happen until it happens. So everyone is kind of reacting to this god of chaos, as you put it.
Like games inherently have like a certain amount of rules, and Shadowrun, from what I've heard, has a lot of rules.
Yeah,
but
it has a lot of rules.
It has like a general sense of like guiding you through it, but still like it could be anything. Like the end results. So was this like your first experience with like Shadowrun beforehand? Like just like, or like, not Neoscum necessarily, but like in like the role-playing sessions that led up to let's make a podcast out of this.
Yeah. We were playing Shadowrun, me and fellow podcasters, Mike, Casey, Blair, and Eleni eventually. But the first games we played were just me, Casey, Mike, and Blair, and a few other people who swung in and out. I think we played 4 or 5 games before we were like, yeah, why not? Let's record ourselves.
Yeah, we're like millennials, and everyone makes podcasts about every part of our life.
Yeah, right. It's just like, well, if we're playing this, we're we have fun. Might as well,
Now, do you have any experience with like any of like the Shadowrun like games that they, or like any of the other like I guess extended Shadowrun content, as it were?
I know Mike was playing. We were all roommates, me, Mike, Casey. Mike was playing those games for a while. Sometimes I'd watch him over his shoulder, but I'm not super well versed.
Like the newer ones, I imagine. I
think so. It was like the top-down strategy game. Yeah.
Yeah, there were 2 like way back in the day. Like one was for the Genesis, one was for the Super Nintendo, and one was like a point and click adventure basically. And
that's far out.
Yeah, like the Super Nintendo one's basically like a point and click adventure. I think actually it's literally a point and click adventure. But like the Genesis one is also like it's like trying to make a role playing game, if that makes sense. Like you do a lot of runs and it's very open ended. So it's like they're almost like they're trying to recreate the table, and it's a game I think about a lot because there's very little else like it.
Shoot, I gotta check that out. That sounds pretty. I used to work at like a video game movie store, and we would had just started the podcast at the time, and I remember putting away Shadowrun games and wondering about it. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, there was just like someone just did a write up on Paste Games, and like.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
And I realized, wow, people are into this. It was one of those growing up, one of those things that I thought only I liked.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wow, people really enjoyed this game because it was like something I bought from my neighbor. I gave, we paid him money and he gave us his old Genesis and a bunch of games.
Cool.
When I was young. But,
yeah.
So as this is ostensibly about video games, I guess, do you play many video games, Gannon? What is your relationship to video games?
Yeah, I play a lot. I mean, it's with the fucking coronavirus. Casey, the person I just mentioned who's on the podcast, has gotten me into recently, the last 3 or 4 months, just like burning through like all the Dark Souls games.
Okay.
Started with 4 and went to Dark Souls 1, went to Dark Souls 3. I'm on Sekiro, and then also Mike, I'm talking about Mike and Casey a lot here. Mike and
Yeah.
Casey both just got the second Dark Souls, and so now I'm playing that one alongside Sekiro. And I gotta say, I'm looking forward to some really dumb AAA, very easy, stupid game where I can like steal cars and run into people's houses.
Yeah, for all for all of my pretension, I'm not going to pretend that I don't spend a lot of time playing Magic the Gathering on the internet.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And like
yeah.
Final Fantasy 14, because
That's
sometimes
cool.
I like to chill around and let the numbers go up, and I go, yeah, my numbers got really high.
That's nice. That's pretty nice.
And have you played Bloodborne?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the first of them I played.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I like the weapon
Mm.
transition. There's like that game is very like chunky and dirty
Yeah,
in a way I super appreciate. Like,
yeah.
like you can sort of
Yeah,
like,
it's
you can feel like the rust on everything.
totally. And you know like the weapons, it's like you can feel them as they transition, and it's got a good sense of you smacking people with them. Yeah. It's like at first I was really, really repulsed by the style, especially of Bloodborne. I thought it
Yeah.
looked really chunky and weirdly like for a video game. People were like, "No, but it's like it's doing something artistic with what it's doing." I thought
Right.
it like looked like really repellent and extremely gamey.
Yeah.
But man, like once you like tap into it, like and actually start like beating people and get on a run of just dominating some guys who were, kicking your ass earlier. It's just like I can't like that's the only hit I crave now.
Right. That
Like,
satisfaction.
like anything. It's so like I beat a couple of guys in Sekiro earlier today. Some mean samurais who kept beating me up, and man, felt good.
I will admit that I played through Dark Souls. I think the second one or the first one at one point I played through as like a real fat boy, where I just like, put on the thickest armor. And I just kind of like stood in front of
For
people.
sure.
And I was like, "Hey, buddy, let's hit
Yeah.
you. I'll hit me, and we'll see who wins first." So, but anyway, we could talk about souls and the forgotten majesty of a dead dragon forever.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
again, and for all the true gamers out there, what would you recommend that's not a game that people just like try for once in their life?
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend getting into the band Hawkwind, but not getting into Hawkwind after their stuff. After Warrior on the Edge of Time, you can let them go. I haven't even gotten into that. I think it's good for gamers because Hawkwind is a cool band. They're a cool rock group.
Yeah.
They came out at a time before, punk or metal were really crystallized. So they were sort of like a psychedelic garage rock band that was doing this kind of proto metal and punk, and but like doing songs about like getting twisted on some insane drug and like dying in space, and was just laying out like these insane thick riffs. I think subject matter is gamer safe, but
gamers love thick riffs.
They love that. Yeah, and the riffs are nuts, and it's a deep group, and we need more Hawkwind fans.
Okay.
We gotta bring Hawkwind into our lives before 2100.
Perfect. Make 2021 the year of Hawkwind. I just remembered something I wanted to ask you. So Hozak Records, like, that was like a surprising and very cool thing. Did you just like cold email them and say, "Hey, can we use your stuff?" And they were like, "That's cool."
It was awesome. Yeah, like I learned about Hozak from the Best Show with Tom Sharp playing it. He's a cool comedian and he plays cool music at the top of his show.
Yeah.
And he was playing a lot of Hozak for a while, and it was just like I just found all these musicians who were so cool, and like all this great like forgotten like nasty 70s punk stuff that's just like so gnarly.
Yeah.
And I was just like I remember like looking at their stuff one day and being like, I could just email them. They're local Chicago guys. So like me and Casey pained over an email for like days. Like, when you're like writing an email, it's like, is this too formal, too informal, whatever.
Right.
Okay, I sent it. Eee!
Yes.
And then like an hour later, they were like, yeah, for sure. They were like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. Here's all our download. Like,
shit, dude.
Here's our whole archive. And I was just like, oh my, like,
right.
It rocks. Like, and I guess the thing is like a lot of podcasts don't ask and just, play whatever. And I don't know. I think technically that's, whatever, it's fine.
Right.
But it's really cool to specifically like be with the Hozak label because like it gives the whole show a very specific sound.
Yes.
And texture that I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of all that music.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think I always think bare minimum, like if you had like a super popular actual play and you were like, skimming off of like some Moog synth legend, you were like mentioning them in the credits, for instance. It would be a very uncool move if you did not do that.
For sure, 100%.
But I also like everything I play on here, I always buy on Bandcamp, usually for like $10 minimum, or like I'll buy the vinyl even if they have it and I like it, because even though I go for like I front with pirate radio vibes.
Yeah.
I think you should support musicians and pay them for their stuff, especially now.
That's really killer. Yeah. I think Bandcamp's doing a lot of really, really good stuff. And a great music publication, too. Their write-ups are excellent. Oh, my
God. I've pretty much switched most to primarily Bandcamp for, like, finding music. And I have, like, mountains of it now because they just put out so much suggestions and, like, articles every week.
Yeah.
But
I learned about Dungeon Synth from them. Good stuff. Anyway, yeah.
So what was that last band real quick?
Dungeon Synth. They're the Bandcamp write-ups on Dungeon Synth are killer.
Oh, like the genre.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is like a fun new thing to discover new genres. Like when I learned about Current 93 and I was like, what is Doom Folk?
Dude, I gotta look that up.
Yeah, Current 93. I'm gonna play them on here one of these days. It's like whatever Doom Folk is, they're like from like the 80s or 90s or something, some band out of England.
All right, I'm looking that up.
Gannon, it was great talking to you. We're going to go on our last break. I'm going to come back with everybody. See you all on the other side. Hello, and welcome back to the final segment of Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm here. I talk about not reading the chat, but I did read the chat during one of the breaks. And someone asked what the picture is at the bottom. I got that. That is one of my handcrafted gifts from, what was it, Izuken? I forget the name of it. It's that recent Studio Saru anime about the people making anime. And it's like, it's adapted. It's about the creative process by a guy who went to like art school or by a guy who went to art school and he made a manga about people who make anime, and then they made an anime out of that. I like Science Saru. I think they like. Anyway, I'm here with everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So this last segment, which is
yo.
Whoa. I don't know what's happening, but okay. Hello. It sounds like someone is like joining something, or I'm hearing myself, or maybe I'm duplicating. I'm not sure.
We're powering up.
Okay, so
getting stronger.
Perfect. So this last segment, which is like, hey, everyone chat. Did anyone have any other questions for any of the other guests that they're like, oh man, I wish I could have asked them this when they were talking? That kind of thing, which you don't need to have, of course. But anyway, so also, maybe there isn't anything here. Maybe this is the end of the show, everyone. Like I said, this is the most, what's that called? The most unpredictable portion that sometimes it goes on for half an hour or 45 minutes. Sometimes it's like... Now we're good. We're good.
Whoa.
Hello? Wait, are you here? Are you back?
I'm back. Sorry. Yep.
Hello. Welcome back. Yes. Did you have any questions?
I've been here. I've just been muted. I'm in a house with a lot of people, so
yes,
that would be the background noise.
that's fine. in a house with no people available at the moment. But anyway, welcome back. This is the last segment. Did anyone have any questions? Or my original idea, which was extremely self-indulgent, which is why I did do it. Like, what? Well, this last segment could be, if they have questions for me, it could be a reverse interview. But that's extremely self-important, I think.
Well, what are you playing right now? You were asking about video games. What are you playing right now?
Oh shit! What am I playing? Not including the things that I my like busy work kind of games. I've been besides the games I have to play like every day for like submissions. I've been trying to play Vagrant Story.
Oh, cool.
Because I saw someone posting online. He's like, "Oh, check out this Vagrant Story. Looks great." And it truly does have like amazing camera work in a game. And just
what's the shtick with a Vagrant Story again?
So I think it's a very late era PS1 game made by the team that made Final Fantasy Tactics.
Oh, cool.
It's this. Have you ever played Parasite Eve?
Mm-mm.
No. So it has a weird system. So it's like this mixture of like it's kind of like this real time combat thing but you like pop out a little sphere of like a targeting sphere based on your weapons. And it's got like this incredibly dense system of like blunt, piercing, slashing damage, elemental damage, beast types. It's complicated and I didn't understand it when I was younger. And I still sometimes barely understand it. It's either like way more complicated than I think or a lot easier than I think. Or somewhere in one of those two. Mm-hmm. But also, they just do a lot of like really interesting stuff with like camera work and like, especially like in their very intro, like the portcullis. That's what they call them, right? The gates that come down in a castle. Those are portcullises, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, there's the port when like the guy turns the camera, and the portcullis comes down and like it slams and there's like Vagrant Story. And it like cuts, like interweaves the credits really well, and it's just like a well shot video game. And I think I was watching, like I saw a lot of like Mass Effect recently. I'm like, wow, this looks bad. Like it looks so poorly shot. Like we were talking about in the pre-show, we were talking about like Bionicles cartoons, and it's like I haven't seen them. I didn't watch the thing, but it's like the same vibes of that, like really like stilted, like awkward camera angles. Like somebody is learning to film their movie for the first time and they know you have to point a camera at something, but they're not quite sure that you're supposed to frame things properly yet. So you just have like a bunch of characters just kind of like awkwardly standing around and it doesn't animate well. And it's a whole, it's a whole thing. And that's what got me like thinking about Vagrant Story, because someone posted a Twitter thread a while ago about like, oh, look how amazing the camera work is in Vagrant Story and like the scene setups.
I think I remember that. Yeah, it's coming back.
And I was like, yeah, that does look very cool. They also do like, because they were like a 2D team as far as I know, because Tactics is more or less 2D.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like had weird approaches to creating 3D art that gives it like a more like timely or timeless kind of aesthetic to it. I think it's what like cool. a lot of people who are doing like good modern 3D animation do, where it's like 3D models but with like a lot of 2D drawn onto them.
Oh, cool.
Because a lot of 3D animation kind of looks very poor, especially when like characters talk.
Yeah.
It always bugs me where it's kind of like weird flappy jaws.
Right.
I can see an animator in a room somewhere scrolling, moving their mouse up and down and making a jaw go up and down. It's like, I guess this is cheaper or something, but so awkward. Anyway, so I think we have hit the end of the show, I believe. Nate, Nurburn, did you have anything else to say? Anything other like last minute input in this hey let's all chat section, or are you good?
Does anyone else have hot takes on gamers? that you want to argue about?
I think I'm spoken for, but it's been a pleasure listening and talking with you all.
No, yes, it's been a joy doing this every week and hanging out with people and trying to get other people, doing my best to get people together in a room, even if it's like a digital room. So I will say, in that case, I will sign off. This was. Oh wait, I remember. I was remembering. Shit, plugs. Is it people got thing to plugs? That's what podcasts do at the end. They plug things. We'll just go around the horn.
Yeah.
We'll like clockwise start with Gadden.
Yeah, check out neoscum.com/starter. Neoscum.
It's a good pod. I recommend it. Nate.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Nate Kiernan. You can decide if you want to follow there. And you can find all my stuff, all my writing at critical.com. And if you haven't already seen it, I put together a anti-cyberpunk bundle on itch, which you can find at critical.com/cyberpunk, and is a cool thing that you should check out.
Which I hear is doing very well.
It's really shocking to me. I'm not making any money off it, so I feel totally fine continually plugging it and have no shame. Very happy
I'm of the belief that you always got to take a taste because you put your own labor. But I respect your choice.
Well, I mean, the way its bundles work, you have to have something in the bundle to make money
or something.
So
yeah,
unless I wanted to like put together some random cyberpunk thing at the spur of a moment just to get my cut, but I get my 30 seconds of internet clout. I get a couple angry Redditors yelling at me incomprehensibly. So it's, I mean, on the one hand, money for my time and effort. On the other hand, Twitter likes and trolling Reddit users. So I mean, who could say which is more valuable?
I feel slightly bad for only because contributor and former guest Nilsson Carroll, who was in that, was also in your bundle. And I felt pride because he was like, oh, this is the most money I ever made off of video games, which is well demolished now by that Cyberpunk bundle.
Oh, dang. Well, I mean, I am very happy that...
And I'm very happy for that to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think they were on the show, actually, a little bit. Taylor McHugh, who
yes,
was also in one of the of the Indiepocalypse, and they put out a different game for the Cyberpunk bundle.
Yeah.
Which...
Now, they've been doing, like, killer stuff. They were also in, like, the TCAF, not TCAF, but the Hand-Eye Society's wordplay, like, last month or so.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't see that, but yeah, they're great, and I am excited to have done, like, a tiny thing that has allowed some tiny devs who I think are doing really cool stuff to actually have money to continue doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To funnel money into developers. They need it.
For sure, which is a cool thing about Indiepocalypse, and I hope it can get that level of attention and not have to just write off of people being angry about the latest AAA atrocity.
Yeah. Give me 5 or 6 more years. Maybe one of these issues will break even. But
and I will say that I was into it before it got big and famous. I can have that hipster cred that I desperately need.
You will have it. It is a beautiful thing to have, that unearned sense of superiority. Neurobrand, anything else to plug?
Yeah, you can just find me on itch. I'm nobrand.itch.io like everyone else, and that's about all I'm at right now.
Well, perfect. I will say indiepocalypse.com, indiepocalypse.com/submit your games, indiepocalypse.com/radio. If you're somehow got here a different way, that'll get you straight to here. Or if I ever go off Twitch, it'll just go to wherever it goes. Buy the thing. There's a Patreon, indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. If you want this audio of this thing, But like not a month later, subscribe to that. You can also get copies of Indiepocalypse just delivered. I'm Pizza Pranks. It's my brand because I don't want to use my name online. That's it. I think I have everything. Buy Indiepocalypse, I suppose.
Yeah, do that. It's cool. I can vouch for it.
I like it. I think it's cool. I think a lot of the people who make games in it are cool. I think they deserve attention. I tell people about it so that people will cover it. Thank you. I'm going to close this thing, and there's going to be the end of the show now. But now there is credit so that people don't just go, what? He shut the stream off.